SG Reads.
Hello fellow travelers, my name's SG and welcome to the channel. Today I want to do something a little different than what I've been doing these past couple weeks. I want to do an actual theory on the Amazing Digital Circus episode 3, because this one, despite the other ones, felt more of a lore drop than anything else, leaving a lot to question about Kinger and also about Kane and Bubble. So I really did want to talk about this, give my opinions on it. Maybe opinions have already been said, but for right now, I have not heard them. I have not seen other theory videos talking about this, other than Kinger's background, so I just wanted to add my 2 cents into the matter, and let's get started, shall we? But before we do that, please leave a like, comment, subscribe down below. I'd really appreciate it. Please go watch the original episode 3 and or the rest of the series of Amazing Digital Circus on the Glitch channel, or you can also see on Netflix, which is also really amazing for an independent to get caught by such a big streaming platform. And I have to say congratulations to you guys at the Amazing Digital Circus. It's very well deserved. Alright, let's get started, shall we? Alright, let's talk about the episode first. This is obviously a Halloween-inspired episode, mainly due to the fact that the mission this time is to make their way past the creatures or the spirits in the haunted house. That does have to be gone through, does have creatures, ghosts, demons, and even fallen angels in it, constantly hidden throughout the episode. Many different but biblical references, if you will, along with different takes on the characters as well. But the most important takeaway in this episode is that Kinger steps up and actually be a leader in this one, feeling comfortable with himself enough that he is actually able to come out of his, I guess you could say, his funk, if you will, in the nicest way you could say, that he actually regains his senses, in a sense. And that's really where the whole story comes from. But at the same time, we get Kane and Zubul going through a bit of a, I guess you could call it therapist session on both sides of them, where Zubul's trying to figure out who she is, along with Kane kind of figuring out what is going on here. And many people miss a lot of things that Kane said, and even like certain little nuggets of information that make sense but don't make sense at the same time. So with that being said, let's get started with the theory, shall we? I'm going to assume everyone's seen the episode, and let's get started. Right away, let's talk about the Kinger theory, shall we? Because that seems to be the main focus of the episode. Now, it's no secret that this whole episode is about Kinger's background. What's happening. The fact that he lost his wife, Queener, is also very relevant and told in the story as well. But what can we gather from the episode of what they were there for? What was their purpose? Well, if we're right that this seems to be a bit of a virtual reality therapy session, then I guess you can say that they either went there for a marriage counseling or they went there for a grief counseling. And I'm much more in the latter on that one. There does seem to be hints that they've lost something before. They do seem that Kinger is someone that represents the spirit of the man, that he has been so divulged into work that he let the world pass him by. But there does seem to be this discourse between him and his wife that seems to kind of be the main guide to this whole episode, for the most part. What we do know about their relationship is that they were in the circus together. They came in together for a purpose. Now, usually this would either be some sort of counseling, I would have to say, but to go to this extreme, to actually divulge into this, I would have to say that this is going to more of a kind of a grief counseling, if you will. I think somewhere along the line they lost somebody. I think they lost a son or a daughter. I'm going to lean towards daughter because at the very front of the castle we do see that there is a tombstone, just one, with the name Peg on it, which is an odd choice. Now this could be explained away as this was the wife's name, but we don't really get that. He doesn't really name it and he doesn't drop it. So it's odd that it's right there when everything else is happening around him. And then the idea of something consuming Kinger, something coming after to eat them, does also give this idea of that whatever it was that he was consumed with is still consuming him now. So for the most part we do know that he is a programmer. And the fact that he's a king suggests that he was the one that had programmed the entire digital circus himself, as a means to be a version of therapy for him and his wife. Or maybe he was just trying to help people, period, in some way, shape, or form. Maybe it was the grief of losing someone that caused him to build the circus in the first place. And he was so desperate trying to build it, so hard trying to find a way to make it work, that it ended up becoming something that he just was all in for. Didn't really pay much attention to anybody else, and didn't really listen to the grief of his wife either at the end of the day. So when it was done, she agreed to go in with him, probably reluctantly, and they ended up getting stuck in there somehow. And she could not handle it, and ended up becoming abstracted, becoming one of the creatures, maybe even one of the first creatures we'd see in the series. That would be interesting and would make sense overall. And we do know that Kinger himself is the oldest person that has stayed in the Amazing Digital Circus himself. So for the most part, we can pretty much suggest that Kinger himself is possibly the head programmer or the owner of this program itself, with Pomni becoming the second one to come and help. Maybe try to pull him out, maybe try to get them all out. I can say that Ragatha, while she doesn't have exactly the same effect as Kinger or Pomni, I can say that it feels like she's a nurse. Maybe she's there to help guide people in the right direction. Maybe she voluntarily went there to help. Maybe she was Zubal's nurse. Maybe she was there to help Zubal achieve anything that she wanted to do to get herself feeling better. But for right now, we don't have anything but speculation on that end. Another point I wanted to make was that there was this idea of Kane and Bubble. What is their purpose in this? We do know that Kane is designing these things to be helpful to the residents of the Digital Circus. Now, he's not trying to rule them with an iron fist. He's giving them options to go or not to go, but he does get hurt if they don't go, which is also very peculiar, right? He seems to be the one that gets more offended, seems to be the one more lost, is getting confused by this whole situation if they don't do it. What is happening? What's going on? And we don't really know what is all this is about. And the fact that he can't help Zubal really does bother him. Zubal seems to be someone who is struggling with their identity themselves. So for the most part, Kane wants to help, but every time he tries to, it seems it gets erased automatically. And then we get this small tidbit that he's not even the one that created this area. It was Bubble. He dropped that real quickly, and even Zubal tried to make note of it, saying, "What does that mean?" before he just went off and did his own tangent about something else. So that means that he's not really the one setting up these areas. He's not really the one talking about it. And even the backwards message Bubble gives talks about the monster that's going to terrify the children. So that is an odd take as well. So Bubble is a much more important and impactful character than Kane likes to let on, or even Kane is aware of. So for right now, I want to focus on Bubble. Everyone who's watched the Amazing Digital Circus has taken note of the C&A and the fact that he is named Kane, and of course all the biblical references throughout the series, making this very obvious that there is a Cain and Abel storyline going on in this kind of world. Now, we've mostly assumed that Cain represents Cain, which is obvious, he's the bad one. But who is Abel? And some have theorized that it's maybe Pomni. Some have theorized maybe it's Jax, because he seems more like a program than anything else. I'm going to go on a limb here and say that it's actually Bubble. Bubble is Abel. Because, remember, in the Cain and Abel storyline, they were brothers, basically born relatively close to each other. Maybe a year apart, or maybe they were born at the same time. Maybe they were twins. We don't really know. So it makes sense that if they were programmed together, one would be born older than the other, or at the same time. So that leads me to the idea that they are less like partners and more like brothers. Brothers or sisters, depending on Bubble's point of view. But for the most part, I can say adamantly, it seems that they're pointing that Bubble is Abel. And not only that, Bubble was the one that was kind of liked by the fans. He is the one mentioned all the time, and seems to be the important one. And if we think about it, in the Cain and Abel storyline, Cain was jealous of Abel, mainly because he was the favored. He was the one that could provide a better crop. He was the one that could do more for God in the main story, which was why Abel was the one struck down by Cain. So in this one, it does give that same kind of vibe, with the idea that Bubble is the one kind of being the builder of these worlds, providing more for the people, and maybe that's going to drive Cain kind of crazy. And then there's the idea that Abel, Bubble kind of sound the same. So you can't take that away from the main story as well. And when we first see the creature, we do kind of get that idea, don't we? Because if you think about it, the first thing we see is the head. The head seems to be this large floating circular / oval-like object with a little bit of a bluish to grayish tone, representing more of a monster, but at the same time, if you put it side by side with Bubble, it does kind of seem to make sense, with even the jagged teeth becoming a big part of it later on. So it's hard to say exactly if there's anything connecting to it, but you can definitely see the connections kind of all going together. But at the same time, that's still very loose and up to interpretation for the most part. So, for the most part, that's what I have to say about that. And kind of does give this hint that maybe Kinger knows that Bubble is his own creation along the way. And we do know that he may have been the one to program it, or at least was the head programmer. Maybe not the main one in charge, but at least was the one that started this whole thing, having people like Pomni under him along the way to help push it and create it, make it better. Well, for the most part, that's my theory about what's happening in the main story. We will see that there is definitely a bigger story for Kinger coming, and that the series might turn into more of his story rather than Pomni. Pomni's going to be end up the one that may have been his assistant, that maybe was trying to get him out to begin with, and ultimately fails doing it. Ragatha, I do think, is still a nurse that was there to help Zubul along the transition of trying to find their identity or trying to help them through this process. Jax, I do think, is a program that has gone rogue. There's given many hints to it, and the fact that he acts the same as Kane and Bubble do definitely fall in that direction, but that's not what this video is about. Now, as for Zubul, I do think that there will be a happy ending for Zubul, because we do get that idea that they do need it at this point. Along with Pomni and Ragatha, I do think they will be the ones to escape from this, or they will be the ones to realize that there is no escape from this, that they are programs of themselves. And that one thing that's always bothered me about it is that there is the idea of the Last Supper scene from episode 1, right? Everybody likes to make note of it, and they like to pin that as Pomni being Abel. But I would have to respond to that by saying, this is relying her more to the symbolism of Jesus, so this would have to lean more towards her being a mix of a person and a program. So it's going to turn out that Pomni herself is the mindset and the personality of a programmer. But at the same time, I will have to say that she is not the person themselves. She is a program based on that person, sent there to either get them out or to help them. So that means is that, to me at least, that is the way it's going to be. Ragatha, Zubul, along with several others, will escape. But Pomni's going to be the one to be the main AI in this. Pomni will be the one that remains. Pomni's going to be the one to have to stay and be the new Kane, in a way. I would have to say that's the direction it's going, mainly for that symbolism to make sense, in a way. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed this theory about the Amazing Digital Circus. It's very interesting, this last episode. I really did have a lot of thoughts on. And I do think that there was a lot of lore, a lot of telling things that come out. So, I just wanted to talk about it, discuss it. If you agree with it, please leave it down in the comment section. Or if you have your own opinions, please leave it down in the comment section. I do like hearing people's theories and kind of hypothesis about what's happening in the main story. So, we'll see what happens. Thanks again for watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe down below. Please check out the original series when you can. And I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Have a great one.